Hello everyone. So I'm Dan.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're here to talk to you about growth mindset, why it's important, why if you're not already considering it, it'd be a great idea to start looking into it and considering it. Out of interest, how many people here have heard about growth mindset previously? How many are familiar?
Great.
Pretty decent number, that's good.
Yeah, good.
So as an organisation, we've been implementing growth mindset into our way of life for the past 12 months or so now. And we're going to share some of those experiences with you. So there's a bit of theory in here, but actually quite a lot of it's quite practical as well, which is good. So first of all, when we were looking at growth mindset, we decided to look externally at people and organisations who inspire us. And these are some of the people that we sort of looked towards. Hopefully most of you will be able to recognise a number of people up there. The reason some of these people really inspired us is because they've all reached a pinnacle in their career, they've all been really successful, but they've also had to all deal with a lot of difficulty to get to where they've got to today. And it's really how they've dealt with those challenges and those difficulties and the mindset they've had when they've been doing it that have enabled them to be as successful as they are.
It's not just people who inspire us, it's organisations as well and sports teams. So you can see up here some of the organisations that have been using growth mindset to improve their performance over the past few years. And some of these are our customers and we're inspired by them.
So first of all, what is growth mindset? I appreciate some of you are already pretty familiar with it, but for those that aren't, you don't just have to take our word for it. There's over 20 years of research by a lady called Carol Dweck. Essentially what that research says is that people are somewhere between two main mindsets, a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And we're all on an equilibrium somewhere between the two, so you're not 100% growth mindset or 100% fixed mindset. And you can be fixed or growth mindsets in different areas of your life. So at home, in sports, your hobbies, you could have a growth mindset, but at work you could have a fixed mindset or vice versa. Sarah and I are going to talk you through, I guess, how people think, if they're either one or the other, and essentially, why does that matter? And the reason it matters is how people interact with these four key areas. So Sarah's going to be a very extreme fixed mindset person, and I'm going to come at it from more of a growth mindset perspective.
So with my very fixed mindset, I see any task that I need to do that's got challenges as being a little bit out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to fail and I don't want to look stupid.
Whereas I'll look at challenges as something that is necessary to my own personal growth. I'll actually look at challenges and want to engage with them, want to interact with them, and I'll enjoy taking challenges on.
When it comes to effort, any task that I need to do that requires me to put lots of effort in, I'm going to feel like that's going to reflect badly on me, and it's going to be quite risky for me. So I might not say it, but I'm not going to put 100% effort in at all.
Whereas I'll understand the value of effort, I'll understand that effort's really important to me to grow, and the more effort that I put into something, the more I'm going to get out of it, and I'll understand that fundamentally in my core, I'll really believe it as something that's true.
So with my very fixed mindset, if I think mistakes are going to happen, or if I make mistakes, I'm going to try and cover them up because I think that makes me feel like look like I'm stupid with my colleagues. So I'm going to avoid mistakes at all costs, and I'm going to avoid activities where I might make mistakes.
Whereas for me, I'll see mistakes as something that's necessary, as something that's inevitable. You know, if I'm going to involve myself with challenges, if I'm going to take risks, obviously I'm going to make mistakes. I'm sure I don't want to make huge mistakes, but I'll understand that actually I'll gain more from making mistakes than I will from being brilliant at everything all of the time. I'll learn a lot more.
When it comes to feedback, I'm going to see feedback as a personal criticism. So I'm probably not going to analyse that feedback and decide how I can use it.
Yeah, whereas I'll look at feedback, I'll take it away, I'll analyse it, I'll see how I can use it and to improve myself. Sure, positive feedback's great, we all like receiving positive feedback, but I'll recognise with my growth mindset that negative feedback is actually more useful to me as an individual, it'll help me grow more. So with that in mind, if any of you have any positive or negative feedback for us after this, feel free to give us a chat. So, we've talked to you about what growth mindset is. Now let's talk to you a little bit about what it isn't, because there's quite a few myths around it. So first of all, it's absolutely not about profits. It's not about short-term KPIs. It's a long-term thing, and if you manage to implement it into your culture and into the people in your organization, sure, your organization will grow, and you'll start to see benefits from that. You know, creativity, innovation, all of those things will start to increase, and eventually that'll affect your profits, and that'll be great. But if you come at it from the perspective of, okay, so we're implementing growth mindset, month 1, you know, how are we doing now that we've implemented, month 2, month 3? Well, actually, you've kind of approached it in a bit of a fixed mindset manner, so it's definitely not about that. Take a long-term view when you're looking at this.
Myth number 2, it's the organisation that has the growth mindset. Actually, it's the individuals within the organisation that have the growth mindset. Organisations are responsible for creating the environment where individuals with growth mindset can flourish.
So myth 3, anyone can be an opera singer. That's obviously not the case. I'm sure plenty of us have been trying in the showers for really long times. For me, it's not been that successful. It's the same as, you know, anyone can be a sports star. It's not quite true, but it's not about that. It's about the skill of getting better at getting better. It's about, okay, in your skills and your hobbies and the things you want to be good at, how can you be better tomorrow than you are today?
And myth number 4, you're either growth or fixed mindset. It's not that simple. Most of us have activities that we do where we are growth mindset. Sometimes it's tasks within that activity that we might have a fixed mindset on. You're neither one nor the other, and it can change from day to day whether you're growth or fixed mindset. The trick is to recognise when you're approaching something with a fixed mindset and say, is there another way that I can look at this? And will I get a better result or a better experience if I try with a growth mindset?
And finally, it's not about having a positive can-do attitude all the time. That's absolutely not what it's about. You know, we're all human at the end of the day. We all have shit days, that's fine. And if it's implemented in the wrong way, people can use it as a bit of a stick to beat people over the head with, you know, well, that's a bit of a fixed mindset way to approach things, or you've not really got a growth mindset today when you're having a bit of a rubbish day. Sure, people with a growth mindset are more optimistic than people with a fixed mindset. That's been proven, but it's also been proven, there's a lot of research that says it's a realistic kind of optimism, not just sort of a bit of a useless kind of optimism.
Right, so what if you've got people in your organisation with a growth mindset? What does that mean for your organisation?
So actually, Sarah, I'm going to stop you there, and let's talk about the opposite. Let's talk about what happens if people in your organisation have a fixed mindset and the effect of that. I think everyone knows that your leaders and your managers have a massive role to play in the environment and the culture of your organisation. So let's really drill down into what it looks like if a leader or a manager has a fixed mindset and the effect that has on the team and the people around them. So first of all, you'll start to see that person, you can sort of see from the conversation we had earlier, that individual has a binary frame of mind. You're either superior or you're inferior. And once you're in one of those two categories, you're kind of stuck there. It's quite difficult to move. So what does that mean for them? Well, the most important thing to them is being seen as superior. So they'll start to use the company as a bit of a platform to do that. They'll be very concerned about things like giving praise because they want to be the superior ones. They won't want to give too much praise out. And when they have success within their teams, they'll want to hoard that success and say, you know, that success is down to me as an individual. They become really defensive to challenges. So if anyone sort of sticks their hand up and sort of challenges their way of thinking or challenges their ideas, they can become quite defensive towards that and shout that person down. And they become really focused on short-term KPIs, which is it's pretty obvious why. Short-term KPIs are a great way of showing that you're superior. So you can just say, okay, I've achieved all these short-term KPIs, look how good I am. And that can mean that when you don't hit those short-term KPIs, blame can become a massive problem. People can start being concerned about being judged in those teams, which if you think about it, it's not really that surprising because this person is judging them. That's exactly what they're doing. And then things like groupthink can become really prevalent. You know, people will not want to stick their head above the parapet and say, oh, I've got a new idea, or I'm going to challenge the way we do things. So innovation, creativity, all of those things, they really start to die. I think we all know that your leaders, and particularly your direct line manager, has a massive impact on your life. at home in terms of stress and things like that, but particularly in the working environment. And maybe some of you are looking at the person that we've described up here, and maybe some of you are thinking, I've worked for that person in the past, or maybe you're still working for that person. Maybe you've got a few choice words that describes that person that you've worked for. I know I've definitely worked for that person in the past, and I know it's pretty horrible. I can quite fortunately say that I don't work for that person anymore. Well, I've spotted my manager at the back, so I have to say that. But it's pretty clear that this manager has a massive impact. And you could have the best recruiting policy going, you could have the best procedures in place, get the right people into your business, with a growth mindset, with loads of new ideas, with creativity. But after 6 months of working in this environment, do you think you're going to get many ideas coming out of that person? Do you think they're going to bring much to the business? The chances are they'll probably become disenfranchised and leave. So your organisation will have lost money from the investment in training and all of that kind of thing, but also they'll have lost the opportunity from all those ideas that could be coming in. So environment's definitely really key. And I've given you a pretty gloomy view of the world there, so let's look at the flip side. Let's look at how things can be.
So this research comes from Carol Dweck, who's the guru of growth mindset. Originally, her research was around educational institutions, and she looked at how a growth mindset affected elementary school learners. She then expanded it out to look at organisations. And I think you can sort of see from these figures that embedding a growth mindset within the people in an organisation has real tangible benefits. You can see that 47% of workers place more trust in their company and were therefore more wedded to the vision that company has. 34% felt a sense of ownership and were engaged with the company. 65% felt that the companies would take risks and therefore innovation was stronger. And 41% felt that their companies were more ethical.
So, you're probably thinking about maybe your own mindsets, and hopefully those of you that haven't heard of this before have a good understanding of it now. Out of interest, how many people in here think they have a growth mindset? If you could stick your hand up. Okay, that's interesting. If you're not sure, great. So I know when I looked at this, I definitely thought, I've got a growth mindset, definitely. I like challenges, I like engaging in difficult areas. Sure, I must have a growth mindset. And then I started to analyse some situations I've been in and my behaviours. I can think of one really good example where I've been in a room with a director or my MD potentially, and they've been talking about something, and I've probably not quite understood it. And I've smiled and I've nodded, and my brain's going behind the smile. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But I don't want to look like an idiot. You have a bit of a control over my career path and my success. So what I'm going to do is I'll go away and I'll figure it out later and I'll come back to it. But actually, when I reflect on that, I've approached that in a fixed mindset kind of way, because that was a learning opportunity for me. I could have asked a question and understood something more from someone much more experienced. I think another good example is I don't know many people that have never been afraid of failure. I've certainly been afraid of failure in the past. And I think it's pretty obvious that when you start looking at things with a growth mindset and you see things, mistakes as valuable, then failure is not that much of a bad thing. You can learn a lot from failure, so it's fine to fail at times, definitely. So the thing that happened to me kind of happened to us as an organisation. So we sort of looked at ourselves as a business and we said, we're an L&D company, we love to innovate, we love to be creative. How can all our people not have a growth mindset? Surely that's what's going on. So we did a survey, and the results are pretty interesting. So this was about 12 months ago, and we looked at our people, and the results from this are great. So 36% of people think that you can always learn things, but fundamentally you can't change how smart you are. We're an L&D organisation that thinks that fundamentally you can't change how smart you are. Or 36% of people did. 41% of people agreed that they like doing work that they can do perfectly almost all of the time. So not too much risk taking, not too many challenges getting engaged with there. 34% agreed that when they put the extra work in, it makes them feel not as good as their peers. And this one really got me because that's 34% of people perceiving effort as something that's negative. So we looked at this and thought, we've got to do something. So what did we do, Sarah?
So we concentrated in two areas. We're an L&D company, so we looked at the learning culture. So we started off by looking at the learning culture and looking what we could do. But it's no good just having a great learning culture. You need the right environment and the right organisational culture to support that. So could you just flip on for me?
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I'll start by sort of talking about what we did around the learning culture. So we design bespoke training for people, we build learning courses, we build solutions. So we started with what we knew and started to look at how we constructed the learning. So from a sort of design perspective, we looked at embedding growth mindset through the design of our resources. So that means things like being careful about the language we use, being careful about the feedback we gave, creating resources that allow people to experiment in a safe place, and lots of gamification, that kind of thing. But it's no good just doing a training course on its own. That's not going to change anything. That's not going to embed a culture. So we started to look at the training programs that we were running across the organisation, and we started to look at how we could expand that. Now, I could talk about it, but I'm just going to show you a little video from one of the guys that's been working on that. I've noticed him at the back as well there.
My name's Glennon, so I'm a learning technology consultant at Virtual College, and I've been at Virtual College for over 3 years. My main focus is on bespoke content development and specifically looking at those large-scale learning technology solutions. So the Curiosity Group is an internal project that we've been working on at Virtual College. Initially, the main aim of the project was to create a consultancy program for the sales team, but we quickly realised when we looked into it that it should be much broader than that and really focus on a learning culture. So when we started to dig into what a learning culture meant, it became quite clear that growth mindset was something that had to underpin it. So it was, how do we foster a growth mindset amongst all the teams in Virtual College so that we can work together but also provide a much better service to our customers and clients.
Okay, so we looked at the learning culture. We started to embed some new things through the Curiosity Group. But again, we can't just look at the learning culture, we've got to look at the wider picture as well. So Dan, do you want to talk through it?
Yeah. So as Sarah said, the L&D program is really important. We all understand that L&D can be really useful in driving behaviour change. But you've got to get that environment right. If you don't get the environment right, you can have a great L&D program that doesn't quite meet its expectations. So first of all, we focused on our physical environment, and you can kind of see how things used to look there. A bit cluttered, maybe. So we made some changes, and we're still making those changes at the minute. But it's definitely had an impact on the mind frame of people as they've come into work and come into those working environments. With the physical environment as well, we've thought about the mental space that we're putting our employees in, and how we're looking after that mental space for them, and that's really important. So you've got to make sure that your values are supporting the right behaviours, that your KPIs are driving the right behaviours. It shouldn't really be a surprise if you've got loads of short-term KPIs around, achieving figures or the number of things to produce or anything like that. If you turn around to your team and say, so what skills have you developed this week? And they go, well, all of your KPIs tell me to hit these short-term goals. Why would I bother learning? I'm too busy to learn. You can see how that can happen. Implementing procedures to help overcome group thinkers can be really useful as well. And actually, I watched a TED Talk a few months back by a guy called Edward Brasinio. I've pronounced that surname about 7 different ways, so I've definitely got it wrong. But it's on my LinkedIn, actually, if you want to go have a look on there. But it's a really good video around, he talks about how people move between 2 zones, so a learning zone and a performance zone. They pretty much do what they say on the tin, but the performance zone is essentially a high-stakes environment, high risk. So something like a sales pitch would be a really good example of something in the performance zone. Whereas the learning zone is somewhere you can go away where it's just a safe space, so you can develop and you can learn and take some and practice skills that you then take into that performance zone. But when you reflect on organisations, and I've definitely heard this example loads of times, you'll speak to a manager who's hiring, and they'll say, what I need is someone to hit the ground running, learn on the job, go out there meeting people, and just succeed. And then 12 months down the line, they've not tried anything new or not brought anything new to the organisation, and it's not really that surprising why. You've not given them the space to learn and develop and be creative. We showed some sports stars earlier. If you think about sports stars, their performance zone is match day. It's 90 minutes or it's 80 minutes if it's rugby or something like that. And the rest of their time spent training, the percentage ratios there are probably something like 80% training or 90% training. Now, I'm not saying for a second that needs to be the same in organisations, but when you think about it in organisations, we don't give people that same kind of space. So it's really important to make sure you're giving people that space to grow. And if you're implementing something like growth mindset, they definitely need that space to grow, because if you don't give them the space, if you don't give them the environment, they're not going to have the time to be involved with it. And that's something we've really focused on, and we've managed to create, which we're quite fortunate about. I mean, in terms of the environment and this whole implementing this kind of way of being, it needs to come from the top down. It can't be pushed from the bottom up, and you've got to have management buy-in at all levels. So we're very fortunate that our MD's been pushing this from the top down, and we have managed to get management buy-in at all levels. But I've got a quick quote from our MD that you can see up here, just in terms of how she thinks about it. So this is Hannah, our MD. And the interesting thing that happened was, so we produced this talk before we got this, but when you're reading it, you can see all the things that we've been talking about is exactly what she's talking about in this quote here. So it's pretty successfully been pushed down to us. So the final thing we really wanted to share with you, we wanted to leave the last word, I guess, in the hands of the people that have gone through this experience. So just a short video.
For me, the main impact that I've seen growth mindset have on our team and also on the business has been around confidence. So confidence for people to share things that they find interesting, whether that's articles or TED Talks, and also confidence to share things that have gone wrong, which is great because it's really interesting for us to learn from.
So I believe the impact that growth mindset has had on me as an individual is particularly down to my behaviour that has been ingrained into my day-to-day role. So when I'm planning my day in terms of my productivity, if I'm having periods of time where I'm a bit less motivated or need a change in my task, I'll spend that time looking at curated content. So that can be anything from TED Talks, webinars, blogs, articles, looking on social media of experts in that field, and I'll gain exposure into that content, which will then bring into my day-to-day role and when I'm having conversations with clients. So that's how it's impacted me.
Sorry, you go.
Sorry. So we've been on a journey for the last 12 months or so. We're still on that journey. We recognise that we're probably going to be on that journey for forever. It's not something you can stop paying attention to. We've learnt a lot over those 12 months, and there's a lot that we think is really valuable. We really believe in this, and we think that it makes people's lives better, not just at work, but at home as well. And we really want to share that with all of you. So we've created a website. There's a bunch of free resources on there to access. So it's www.virtual-college.co.uk/growth mindset. You can search it on Google. Come and see us afterwards, and we'll. And yeah, absolutely. Come and see us afterwards. Have a chat to us about it. We're just on that stand there, which is pretty convenient.
You can see some of the resources there.
Great
as well.
to come and have a chat.
Yeah.
Is there any questions? No. Okay. Thank you very much.